And I really wanted it to be a place where not only educators, like middle school educators, but parents and students. So there's voices that are being heard from all aspects, not just the teacher itself, or not just coming from my angle of things.
When you're pressed for time, who in education isn't? Podcasts are a great way to stay connected, learn something new, and maybe even inspire you to look at the same lesson in a new way. This week, we chat with dynamic educators who have recently started their own podcast. They share with us some tips and tricks that they've learned along the way and how podcasts have changed their outlook on education.
So I'm Dr. Matt Rhodes, and I have my hat in K-12 as well as higher education. My day job is an education specialist, working with students with special needs as well as students in the general ed population in co-taught classes, as well as in classes that are designated specialized academic instruction. And I also manage a caseload in individualized educational plans, including my podcast, including the books that I am working on right now, and one that's currently releasing in the next week or so. So a lot going on, a lot to balance, but I love what I do, and I love trying to make an impact, whether it's in my backyard or in a greater educational community.
My name is Jeremy Heiler. I live in Michigan. I teach right in the middle of Michigan, literally in the middle of cornfields. I'm surrounded by cornfields at my school district. I currently am teaching middle school science and English, definitely more of an English focus for this upcoming school year.
Matt, you currently host and moderate a podcast called Navigating Education. Could you tell us a little bit more about this podcast? And for those of us who might not know about it, what can we learn?
So essentially, Navigating Education, the podcast, is a place where I monologue or I interview educators really talking about taking their research as well as their experiences and putting it into application and practicality within classrooms and schools so that we can help serve our students in the present as well as prepare for serving them in the future. And we dive into instruction, we dive into educational technology integration, policy, special education, student engagement, the fine arts, just so a wide variety of topics, but with that message of really wanting to help.
What inspired you to start your own podcast?
A lot of educators do have podcasts, and I love listening to them. One of my favorite is Teachers on Fire or the Staff Room podcast. Also, I've been writing a lot of books, blogs, etc., and I just felt like a podcast would be a great way for me to meet educators and dive a little bit more deeper into topics than what a blog or a tweet or post on social media could go into.
One of the other things that you've been working on is podcasting. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be and what your podcast is called?
Because we were all kind of in this lockdown mode, the only thing we could really do was go outside and walk around, and even then you had to be careful if you were going to places. And so I'm fortunate enough to live by some trails where I can walk. And so I just started plugging in the headphones and listening to educational podcasts and really got into it. And I've always been part of some of our middle school organizations that exist. After listening to some of these podcasts, and one podcast in particular was the House of EdTech. Chris Nessie is the host of that, and he is always encouraging his listeners, like, you have a voice, you have something to say, get out there, try it, see what you can do. And so I started going through this process and organizing and trying to figure out what did I want my podcast to be about, and why did I want to do the podcasting. And so I had a little journal. I started writing things down because I'm a big time writer. So I started writing all these things down and trying to get organized. And then I got my first episode out there. that's where it's at. Middle school really is that foundational piece that students need. It's a place where they're trying to discover themselves and who they are. And that's what I really love about middle school, is trying to help them figure out who they are. And I can't tell them who they are. They have to figure that out for themselves. But, maybe this podcast can help with that as well, or maybe give some educators some insights in terms of, how to help those students.
For teachers that are looking to get involved in listening to podcasts, I find it is just one of the ways of learning. So if you want to dive into EduTwitter and get to build a PLN and do some curation, as well as just trying to pinpoint what do you want to learn about.
Are there any tips and tricks that you would give other teachers who really want to start their own podcast?
I think the biggest thing that has come to me from getting this off the ground and started and listening to other people that do podcasts is really the why. What is your purpose? Why are you doing this? Even if you come to terms with like, yep, I just want to talk, even if that's the why part of it, go ahead and do it. I've always been under the impression and always have learned through the writing project and through other people I listen to, like Chris Nessie and Jennifer Gonzalez, is that as educators, we have voices. And we need to get our voices out there, whether we feel or whether you as an educator feel that you don't have a voice, you do. And you need to talk and you need to discuss what's going on in your classroom, how you're feeling about things.
Fitting seamlessly into all areas of our lives, from our daily commutes while tackling chores or getting a workout in, podcasts are bite-sized PDs that can make an impactful difference in our teaching practices. May Matt and Jeremy's words of sharing your voice inspire you to find a podcast perfect for you. Or, hey, even create your own. Check out Navigating Education and Middle School Hallways wherever you find your favorite podcast. Be sure to like this video, follow our LearnOn channel, and comment below with a podcast that we must listen to.